At first glance, it looks like any other bakery, with large mixing machines, industrial-sized bags of flour, and containers of salt and oil and other ingredients on shelves and counters. It has a great view of the Royal River on two sides. In fact, the river runs right through the basement.
So this is how we're powered. We love this mill.
The swift currents power turbines that provide electricity to this old mill building in Yarmouth. It houses a number of businesses, including Spelt, which former attorney Beth George and her husband founded in 2007 and have operated at this site for about 2.5 years. The career switch from the courtroom to the kitchen began when George noticed that so many of her young clients with behavioral problems were being treated with drugs.
I did represent children for about 10 years. And in that, I saw a lot of issues with children in terms of behavioral issues in school, a lot of kids in special ed, a lot of kids being diagnosed with multiple disorders. And it just started bothering me. I said, what's going on? Why are so many kids having so much trouble? And most of them, the recommendation being that they be put on some sort of psychotropic drug. And I just thought there must be alternatives to that. And then what happened was it hit home.
George says her son, who was around 5 or 6 at the time, was showing similar signs: behavioral problems, hyperactivity, and shutting down. She says the family went through the special ed process and other evaluations, but was skeptical of the answers that they were getting, and so decided to focus on diet. George says it became clear that her son had food sensitivities and developed digestive problems when he ate certain wheat products.
You know, we'd say, well, let's go out to eat, we'll get pasta. And the poor kid would always get sick. And, you know, I was busy and I was irritated, and I thought he was, you know, getting sick to agitate me. And the poor kid just couldn't digest this stuff. And someone suggested to us that we might want to try Spelt.
George says that replacing standard wheat with Spelt in her son's diet made a tremendous difference in his life. Being an attorney, she dove into researching Spelt and discovered that it actually doesn't have any less gluten than standard wheat flour.
That's a misunderstanding of Spelt. It actually has a lot of protein, and the protein is the gluten. So it has a lot of protein in it, but it's a weak gluten. The molecular structure of it, if you mix it too much, it falls apart. If you look at a Spelt bread, it's not going to rise as much as a wheat bread. The molecular structure is weaker, so it has a tighter crumb.
Head baker Kip Thiel has carefully mixed a batch of Spelt dough for bagels, which are shaped by a hand-fed machine.
We feed in the dough when it's ready to mixing after it's rested. The dough goes in through the top, and the paddles inside cut off the actual pieces of dough, and it actually shapes them round, so we don't have to do it by hand. So we get, much more production at a time involved. So,
as the uncooked dough rings emerge from the machine, Beth George spritzes and gently dredges them in a tray of sesame seeds and sets them on large baking sheets. The bakery, which supplies stores throughout New England and eastern New York, including Hannaford and Whole Foods, can turn out about 15,000 bagels a week. Demand for Spelt products, says George, is growing, even though it's more expensive, and she acknowledges presents some obstacles.
The obstacle is it's inconvenient. It is an inconvenient grain.
As its history bears out. Originating in Mesopotamia around 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, Spelt made its way into Europe in the Middle Ages and came to the United States at around the time of the Civil War, brought in by Swiss and German immigrants. But George says Spelt ran into trouble after the turn of the century because its tough hulls would become stuck in combine harvesters.
So the grain really was just ignored. And why not? I mean, why have a grain that's inconvenient when you can grow wheat that you don't have to dehull, that doesn't get stuck in the harvesters? And it wasn't until 1987 that the owner of Purity Foods, his name is Don Stinchcombe, now a friend of mine, brought Spelt in from Germany to the United States because he thought there would be interest in the grain.
George believes that Spelt will grow in popularity and continues on her educational mission with one wish.
My Spelt wish would be that it would be a household word. People would understand what spelt is. They wouldn't say fish or spelt. What is it? Why do you have a spelling company? That they understand that it's this grain, that it's great to vary your diet with different grains, and that Spelt Right become the brand that people think of with Spelt. That's my wish, and I'm on my way.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Beth George is the owner and operator of Spelt Right Bakery in Yarmouth. For more information